Welcome to the April 4th Coalition. Our wonderful friend Liz Manns is not here today. We are taping, this is week 218, and this is the 243rd show that we are doing since the closing of the North Adams Hospital. Our mission statement is, we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights, and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We are taping this show, and we are also on at 6 o'clock on Friday evening on WMNB 107.1, thanks to our great friend, Mike Putnam, the founder of WMNB. So here we go, and we usually start off with Article 23 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Okay, number one, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number two, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number three, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection.
Number four, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for protection of his or her interests.
Well, we
Here
have
we
a few things to talk about. I was looking for one book that I brought in, and I just can't seem to see where I laid it down.
It's right behind you.
Okay, it's right here. It's behind the, I can't see it behind the computer. And as I was saying before, I like to draw on other religions just to broaden our perspective and ensure that, you know, we respect everyone's right to freedom of religion. You know, we are not just a Christian nation. We are a nation of many beliefs and those that hold no beliefs publicly and keep them to themselves.
And finding commonalities.
Yeah.
You seem to be finding commonalities between the
Right.
different religions in our country and around the world.
But this one has a lot to do with water. And this says, the highest goodness is like water. The highest goodness is like water. Water easily benefits all things without struggle, yet it abides in places that men hate. Therefore, it is like the Tao. For dwelling, the earth is good. For the mind, depth is good. The goodness of giving is in the timing. The goodness of speech is in honesty. In government, self-mastery is good. In handling affairs, ability is good. If you do not wrangle, you will not be blamed. And the importance, I think, of bringing that topic of water, this is, from a Chinese culture. But we talked about in our past shows about a rekindling of a relationship to the people of the Sioux Nation, or the tribes at Standing Rock. And those protesters are called water protectors.
Yes.
And they've been in the news again. They're asking people to go on their website and to email the utility board in North Dakota they're trying to increase the amount of oil that is going through the pipeline. There's already been leaks with the amount of oil that's going through now, and they're trying to fight that. So we've been trying to support them. And we have a local connection. One of the historians for the Standing Rock tribe is LaDonna Brave Bull Allard, who for a short time lived in North Adams and went to Drury High School. So I just wanted to talk about
She was a founder of Sacred Stone Camp, and we're all fighters. A lot of us are fighters of the Dakota Access
And you have been
Pipeline.
fighting against the pipeline in Berkshire County, too.
Well, I've done it since 1997, starting out in Connecticut and in Massachusetts, but also part of supporting the water protectors. someone even brought me back one of their water protector buttons. I should have brought that with me today.
Yes.
But we're having a wonderful exchange with, and I call it LaDonna, Brave One,
Brave Bull.
Brave Bull, but yes, Brave Bull. And this is because you found out she was in your class. A part of history that I never expected would come into North Adams, of her being separated from her mother, her family, and brought to North Adams and put in a foster home, which happened to tribal children in this country. It's horrific. And you made a wonderful contact with her, which is opening up. And
Well,
I've
I
also
want to thank you and Mike, and then the other members of my Drury High School class of 1974 who encouraged me, because I saw her on Democracy Now!, but I really didn't have the courage to actually send an email out saying, hey, I was someone in the same class as you, are you the same person? Because, you know, I really didn't know her personally, and but I just remembered it stood out. We didn't have a lot of LaDonna Brave Bulls. We didn't have a lot of Brave Bulls at the Drury High School when I was there. So I remember that. But whenever I saw her on Democracy Now! Speaking as a leader of this national
is.
movement, or international movement to protect our waterways and to protect our water. These are all basic things, you know, just like when we want to protect children, or we want to protect mothers, and we want to protect, you know, the working people, the people who are at the lowest rung, you know, and we just treat water like we always have access to it. Last week we showed a cut from Democracy Now! Where they interviewed a homeless person. And he talked about the most important thing that he would treasure if he ever had a home again is being able to take a bath or a shower. When we have the water available to us just by walking over to the tap, it's different. You know, we don't think much about it. We don't think we have to protect it. The same thing when we take for granted that we have our children and we have a home and we have our grandchildren and they have a good life, we take it for granted. But these people are looking like the native people look 7 generations. They're not just looking out for what's best for me today. How much money can I get out of the stock market today? They're looking, how is it going to affect 7 generations down?
Well, we have places in the world where they don't have water, and then this is going to be, because of climate catastrophe, becoming worse. And of course, I was aware of water because I lived in Tripoli, and the well was on top of the villa, and if the electricity went off, which could be for 2 weeks at a time, although we could go to the base to get water, everything else went off. You couldn't use the tub or the sinks or the toilet or any of that. And part of the fight against these poisonous gas companies, toxic, is the fracked gas, and the way that it's done, which has caused earthquakes, but also the water that's used to pressure down to pull up this gas cannot be recycled, cannot be cleaned, and are left in these giant pools. This is a whole part of that whole fight for those of us nationally, and supporting Standing Rock. And all
And
the tribes
they're
that are
fighting
violent.
against the movement of tar sands
Yes,
oil from Canada through the United States
yep.
down to the refineries, I think, in Texas. But so we're trying to advocate for the people that are least.
The most vulnerable.
Yes.
The most vulnerable.
Just like when
We have to support. We have to support.
just like when we advocated for our hospital, our full-service hospital, just, you know, the report that they did said that we were a vulnerable population here in North County that needed a hospital and needed beds, inpatient beds.
And we still
We
do.
continue
And
to
that fight
advocate.
will not stop.
No.
No, it's ridiculous, it really is. I mean, there's no reason why we don't have a hospital, no real good reason except for money for the people on top. They want to keep the money where they can use it, that way they make more of a profit.
Classic example of greed.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, there's another issue that came up in the past week is Medicare for All. Elizabeth Warren and her campaign came out with they kept asking, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? And she came out with a plan, so I have several articles, people discussing it. She's coming under a lot of criticism, but not as much criticism, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think not as much criticism as the tax cuts for the very rich that were plowed through in the early days of the Trump administration.
Yeah.
The tax cuts for the rich cost quite a bit, but
Well, then you go to the Supreme Court decision in Citizens United. All these things that are favoring corporations over of the people, by the people, for the people, you know, all of these that are going against paving the way for even more greed. And I think right now, I just started to read something on allowing, turning back. I mean, the Environmental Protection Agency, this administration is turning back rules and laws that have been in place, regulations for years
And some-
on clean water. And, you know, clean water, clean air, these are major, this is life.
But the problem here is Trump can't make the money he wants to make if you keep the environment clean. He won't be making his money.
But it's
So
not
he's
just
having-
him.
Well, him and his boys, and
Corporations.
girls.
not, yeah.
The
it's-
corporation, they're all doing it, but the whole idea is they're doing it all about money. What they don't realize is the harm they're gonna do down the road for future generations, just to make the money now because they're greedy. They want every penny, well, like you said before, there's enough for the need except for the greed.
Yes. You know, they only want one thing, and that's everything.
Yep,
I mean, there's, you know,
That's a good way to put it.
if they gotta take it from you, they will.
you know, I don't think capitalism is a bad thing, but I don't think capitalism, the way it's working right now, is working for everybody. You can't, I remember hearing a man speak that, you know, I think when capitalism exists, everybody's a capitalist. I don't care if you say you're a socialist, you're this or that. It's a capitalist system. You have to make money in order to survive. And, you know, there's
Well, I think part of that is the definition of capitalism and what's happened, the difference between free enterprise and competition. And I just heard Sundays at 1 o'clock, oh gosh, I can't think of his name.
Le Show?
The show, and and there was a woman on it, and she's just put a book out, and I should have written this down, called Surveillance Capitalism. It's a little scary topic about, you know, what is happening with all these companies making money off things that are common to you and me and Mike, about getting to know each other and talking to each other because of social media, and what's being bought and sold of our private data in our lives.
Right.
And behavioral changes. And so that's something we might talk about in the next
right.
show.
The important thing, and I think we talked about Muhammad Yunus, who was a
Yes.
Nobel Prize winning economist, and he said about capitalism is it's a great system, but most of the world is left out of it. That, you know, that banks and people who control money, the very rich, are not allowing people to participate. And he set up banks for the poor to do micro lending. Especially, he found that lending money to women usually would take care of a village in a community. And he set up he liked the idea of lending money, small amounts, to people who didn't have the credit history. But you know, his bank, the Grameen Bank, doesn't, and they are all over the world now, they don't require a lot of forms and everything, but there's a trust that they set up. And he said they have a higher rate of repayment than any bank in the world.
But if you have a capitalist system that leaves out so many people, it is not a good system.
No.
And that's part of the structures of the systems are intended to make money, make profit, powered by greed, and are not inclusive.
Right, and there's no
So-
human aspect to
No.
it. I like Huey Long, and I think Jesse Jackson always used that analogy about having a picnic. if you were to have a picnic and you put all the food out so everyone could eat it, and you have 100 people at your picnic, and if 5 people come and take 95% of all the food and leave only 5% for the rest to fight over, you're going to tell those 5% to, hey, put some more food back on the table. Let everyone share in it. You can have a lot, but you have to share it with everybody. Like Mike referred to that quote from Gandhi, there's enough for everyone's need, but there's not enough for everyone's greed. And that's what we have to fight.
It's a good way of looking at it too. When you say it like that, people understand what you're saying. It's right out there in the
Yeah,
open.
with 100 people, you wouldn't let 5 people come and take 95% or even more of that. You'd have them put some of that grub back on the table, to quote Huey Long. And how many houses and how many suits and how many houses do people need? I mean, I think there was one article that said like there's maybe 5,000 billionaires in the world. I'm not sure if that's the correct number, but I mean, do we really need billionaires? I mean, we listened to Robert Reich, and he spoke about it that we probably shouldn't have billionaires.
Because they're billionaires.
One of Donald Trump's main
We
campaign
have a
money from
Robert
us.
Reich segment that I'd like to segue into, but you were going to say something
No,
before
no.
we start?
It's just that, it's the way you talk about what people are missing and so on, that they realize that those people who have the power, they never quit taking. No matter how bad it gets for the people on the bottom, they're never going to quit taking on their own. So we got to have rules, laws, to make sure it stays a little bit even-sided.
Right. I remember hearing one economist when I was at UMass saying that if you took, I don't know what percentage from the people that were at the very top, I don't know what percentage it was, and give it to the people on the bottom, you would like quadruple the wealth of the people on the bottom, and the people on the top would
Wouldn't even
still
know
be
about
the
it.
richest.
They wouldn't feel it.
Would be the richest people in the world still. Just like in the Taoist thing, there's that book that I read, they have, and I've quoted it before, and it's about the way of heaven, if I can find it. And it talks about comparing the way of heaven to being like a bow and arrow, where when you test it out, you have to take stuff from the top and loosen in the bottom. And it says, the way of heaven is like stretching a bow. The top is pulled down, the bottom is pulled up. Excess string is removed. Where more is needed, it is added. It is the way of heaven to remove where there is excess and add to where there is lack. The way of people is different. They take away where there is need and add where there is surplus. Who can take this surplus and give it to the people? Only one who possesses the Tao. Therefore, the sages act without expectation, does not abide in his accomplishments, does not want to show his virtue. So we can look at the antithesis of the sage, and we can listen to what Robert Reich has to say about the 6 ways Trump has sold out America.
Oh, yeah.
Just the opposite of a sage. So let's show this video and see what.
One of Donald Trump's main campaign promises was to put America first and defend American interests above all else. It was a theme that riled up his base at rallies across the country, but this has turned out to be yet another big lie. At every turn, Donald Trump has sold out America for his own personal interest. Instead of putting America first, here are 6 ways Donald Trump has put himself first. Number 1, he has encouraged foreign powers to interfere in our democracy. Trump is using the power of the presidency to encourage foreign leaders to interfere in our elections, asking the president of Ukraine to investigate Trump's political opponents in exchange for military aid. He's also publicly called on Russia and China to investigate his domestic political opponents. Number 2, he receives money from foreign governments through his hotels and real estate business. Since taking office, representatives of at least 22 foreign governments, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Russia, have spent money at properties owned by the Trump Organization. These payments are clear violations of the Constitution's Emoluments Clause, which forbids the president from accepting anything of value from foreign governments. Trump had even planned to host next year's G7 meeting at his Doral Golf Resort in Florida, but this brazen corruption was apparently too much even for his supporters in Congress. Number 3, he's making foreign policy on the basis of where his business is located around the world. The simplest explanation for why he cozies up to Turkey's dictator, Recep Erdogan, even withdrawing U.S. troops from the Syrian border, is that Trump Towers Istanbul is his first and only office and residential building in Europe. And businesses linked to the Turkish government are also major patrons of the Trump Organization. Number 4, he has called on foreign powers to investigate Special Counsel Robert Mueller, who concluded that Trump's campaign sought help from Russia during the 2016 election. The Trump administration has encouraged officials in Italy, Australia, and the United Kingdom to investigate details of Mueller's investigation in an effort to discredit his report. Number 5, he's favoring authoritarian regimes around the world, turning his back on America's allies. Beyond Turkey's Erdogan, Trump has said he's in love with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. And of course, he's praised Vladimir Putin. Number 6, he has ignored American intelligence agencies, relying instead on foreign governments. He's repeatedly disputed that Russia interfered in the 2016 election, favoring Vladimir Putin's version of what happened over the findings of our own intelligence community. Donald Trump claims to be a patriot. At the same time, he sells out America. He's brazenly sought private gain from foreign governments at the expense of the American people. Instead of putting America first, he's repeatedly put Donald first.
Yep,
Yes.
That's
quite
the-
frightening,
It is.
really quite
One
frightening.
man has
And those who support him.
the position of power, and he abuses the power, and all he wants to do is use the White House for his own gains. And it's just the problem. He can do damage, and really can get people killed if he continues on his stupid paths. I mean, somebody's got to block him somewhere, in the Senate, the House, whatever. Because if he does what he wants to do, some of our allies are going to die because of it.
That's one of the things about centralized power that is so dangerous, and also the Congress giving up some of the powers
Yeah.
to the president that are clearly theirs.
Yeah, but no one's above the law. I congratulate Nancy Pelosi and her stand. She did not want to impeach this president. She knew politically it was not the best thing. But when
But she wasn't also going to do it without step by step by step, making sure that the steps that she took were well thought out, documented, and will stand up to scrutiny and the necessity to reach the point of deciding to impeach the inquiry first and impeach.
Well, what she was saying is I have a copy of it here, the Constitution of the United States. She said on the anniversary of when I think it's 1787 when the Constitution was ratified, Ben Franklin came out of Independence Hall, and someone asked him, "Do we have a monarchy or a republic?" And Franklin's response was, "We have a republic if we can keep it."
Yes.
And that's what the Constitution is about, something to stop a monarchy, meaning they fought against a king that
We don't need
was
another
above
king,
the law.
right.
They felt very important that no person in the country would be above the law. And they included impeachment in the Constitution. And
For that very purpose.
Yeah.
There had to be a way when you can't indict a president who's sitting to be able
Right.
to
Because-
stop him and remove him if necessary.
right, because of the period of time between elections, they knew that sometime they're just human nature. Sometimes someone will try to get away with things that they should not get away with. So needed a mechanism where the people could stand up through their representatives and have him impeached.
I think this is the-
An impeachment vote isn't necessarily the removal of the president. if you go
It's
to
a
the.
step towards it.
Right, if you
And
go
I
to
think
the.
this is the fourth president that has been
Yeah.
impeached.
If you go to the Federalist Papers, number 65, which was the papers that were written about what went into the writing of the Constitution, and it talks about impeachment there. You can go on YouTube, and it has the Federalist Papers, number 65, and you can view it. We have it, it's about 11 minutes long, but you should go and listen to it, because it talks about the fact that, you know, the House, they took from the English way of impeachment, where the House of Commons would impeach the person. And impeachment means there's been facts gathered that the person has basically broken the public trust. And then it's up to the Senate. They felt that the Senate represents a lot of people in the country, but they're not so easily swayed as because they have longer terms in office, just like the House of Lords, that that's where the trial would take place. After the House of Representatives would present the prosecution, but the senators would sit as the jury.
The court.
They're the jury, yeah. They will decide. That is where the court is. And
that's a sacred duty.
right, and they knew, and they even talk about it in that there's going to be, when something like this comes, there's going to be people advocating for the scoundrel and people saying that the guy is a scoundrel. And you have to weed through that. But we have to remember the reason why we're doing it is to uphold the Constitution and be respectful of that. Either way, whatever the results is, they're following the Constitution. We've heard people say that this is a Stalinist type activity that's going on. And I remember Stephen Colbert said, yes, Stalin was impeached after 35 years in power, after he died. Yeah, that was his impeachment, you know.
Yeah.
This is different. This is the democracy. Impeachment is written right into the Constitution. And it's our duty as individuals to react to the times. I mean, we don't want to be in this situation. No one does.
Oh, no, because it's so hard. But I must say, I commend Nancy Pelosi for her strength.
So you go.
Just
So you're
incredible,
going up
health.
against King Trump. He wants to be the.
She's Speaker of the House, and
he
I
wants
think
to be the
she's
king.
doing an amazing job.
Yeah, she is. But I think Trump wants to be king. I really do.
Well, I don't think he's even taken the time to study. He's not fit for the job. Many people have said it.
He would even. I'll be honest with you.
We
With
only
his
have 30 seconds.
ego way it
30
is,
seconds.
he wants to be the king, and he can't be the king.
And we
in the
don't have
United
kings
States.
in the
No, we
United
don't.
States.
We vote. If he had his way,
Except for
nobody
you,
could,
Mike.
Nobody
We
could.
have
Oh yeah.
King Mike.
If we have
Mike.
kings, then the power would not be in the people. We the people.
Yes.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Here we are, all of us.
And we are
Power
the
to
people, and we vote, which we will
Yes.
do when? When do we vote?
We vote tomorrow.
And we vote 1 year from today, too.
Yes,
That's right.
and if you hear us on Friday, we hope you will have voted tomorrow.
That's right.
Power to the people.
Pastoral learned with workers' blood, mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud, war's always been the bosses' way, sir. The Union forever defending our rights, down with the black leg, all workers unite, with our brothers and our sisters in many far-off lands. There is power in our union. Now I long for the morning that they realise brutality and unjust laws cannot defeat us. But who